Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander Score Studio. Welcome to the show. So, day 2-ish of spoiler season. I mean, we had like those like early preview kind of things over the weekend, but it's kind of like more so day 2 in my opinion, really. Day 2 of spoiler season for Duskmourn is here, and some giant spoilers came out overnight. Let's jump into them. Let's start things off though with Victor Valgavoth Seneschal. I kind of wanted to make sure I covered this one as well and talked about what kind of cards can work really well with it, because it is a very unique commander in what it does. A 3/3 human warlock for 3 mana and Orzhov with Eerie. Whenever an enchantment you control enters, and whenever you fully unlock a room, surveil 2 of this the first time this ability resolved this turn. Second time, each opponent discards a card. If it's the third time, put a creature card from a graveyard, not just your own, on the battlefield under your control. So, yeah, this is really cool. So essentially, this is kind of like Constellation-ish, but also counts whenever rooms are fully unlocked. And this is one of those types of triggers that happens with separate kind of instances. So again, you have like that first one, Surveil 2, that's some nice card selection. Plus, I mean, getting things in your graveyard obviously can be a very good thing. Then the second one is, hey, card disadvantage for your opponents. And the third one is massive amounts of value, again, free reanimation. Now, how easy is it to get, 3 enchantments in play in a turn? Well, it depends just like how you build your deck. If you are just, like, I play an enchantment, yeah, it's going to take you some time to get there. But of course, we've got ways to, blink enchantments, maybe bring them back. Maybe do some other crazy things to ensure that we are maybe even making enchantment tokens as well, ensuring that we can hit that 3, not just on our turn, but maybe even on our opponent's turns as well, so we can get so much absurd value, and we are also just decimating our opponent's hands. I mean, at a certain point, you can kind of turn this into like a control enchantment strategy in a way. We're like, oh, my opponents have no hands. Cool. And also, I'm just decimating you with value, and I'm utilizing probably your creatures that you discarded and mine that I surveilled. Good luck to you for stopping me. So with that said, let's jump into some cards that work with this really quick. And if you are interested in any of these and building around this commander, make sure you check out that link in the description below. Let's do it. So, first of all, yeah, I mean, like I mentioned with the commander, rooms are part of that whole eerie constellation type thing as well. So if you unlock a room, great, do it, yay, cool. Yeah, I mean, we only know so many rooms so far. I mean, Dollmaker Shop Porcelain Gallery is a very good one. Whenever one or more non-toy creatures you control attack a player, you get a 1/1 white toy artifact creature token. Creatures you control have base power buffs, each equal to the number of creatures you control. That can be quite nice. Again, we've only seen so many rooms so far. We'll get to another one, a new spoiler on this episode as well to talk about. But yeah, if you want to go like full rooms, I mean, we'll see how much support you get in this set. That being said, the way I would go most likely are enchantments that can benefit you in other ways as well, especially with enchantment creatures, because they're more easy to use and abuse with this kind of a commander. When this enters, draw a card. Again, like I was saying earlier, well, hey, if you've got some enchantments that you can maybe blink, and there's a lot more ways out there to blink creatures, especially mass blink creatures, if they're enchantment creatures as well, you're getting that trigger from your commander as well, on top of whatever ETBs they might already have. So yeah, ETB, draw a card. Great. On top of that, again, Surveil 2 with that Eerie. And then also if you're later on, just disadvantage your opponents or getting creatures back for yourself. Semester's End. Just an example, this Eerie Interlude is more expensive. Ghost Away or whatever the other one is. There's a lot of ways to just like mass blink your entire team. Laziel's Acrobatics, whatever that one is too. So again, I would probably build like enchantment creatures that are low to the ground that have some good ETBs. I would have a good amount of focus on that as part of my deck to ensure that I can have those big explosive plays where I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. I mass blink everything. I get whatever ETBs they have. Plus I am pretty much automatically going to hit the 3 requirement for my commander to, again, Surveil 2, make everyone else discard, and also reanimate something. I should have said what this one does. Basically, blink any number of creatures, center planeswalkers you control. They come into play with additional counters on them, essentially, at the end step. So there you go. Next up, we've got Doomwake Giant. Just an example of an amazing Constellation card. Again, Constellation was like the OG. I mean, we've had, actually, there's like an OG of like no name around this essentially. But when enchantments come into play, this is like the OG, like, hey, enchantments come into play, you get this. When it or another enchantment enters the battlefield to control, creatures your opponents control get -1/-1 until end of turn. So again, if you got this kind of strategy, we're like, let's get a lot of enchantments in play very quickly in one way or another. Again, like I'm saying with the enchantment creature blink, cool. Decimate your opponent's boards again and again and again. And by wiping out your opponent's creatures again, you give yourself the opportunity to steal them out of their graveyards. Speaking of which, this is the very first card I thought about when I saw this commander. I was like, oh yeah, okay, reading. Second part, like, oh, that's reminiscent of Thought Render Lamia. Oh, gross. Whenever this or another enchantment enters the battlefield to control, each opponent discards a card. This is basically like that second eerie trigger or whatever out of your commander, essentially. But this now just says every single time this happens, your opponent's hands are going to be decimated, which again leads to them potentially discarding some great creatures for you to reanimate. But yeah, just basically makes them have to top deck, and they're probably going to be gone, especially if you've got like instant speed ways to blink things as well. But yeah, this is a very brutal constellation effect that can work so well in tandem with your commander. Archon of Sun's Grace really quickly as well. This one is not an enchantment creature, unfortunately. That being said, a great constellation effect. Pegasus creature control of lifelink. Whenever an enchantment enters battlefield to control, make a 2/2 white Pegasus creature token with flying. Being able to just very quickly flood the board with a ton of creatures, yes, is quite nice. Again, this one itself is not an enchantment creature, so you got to kind of balance, like, okay, how many enchantments do I need in this deck? How many enchantment creatures am I going to have in this deck? Am I okay with something like this as well? I mean, if you're just, got to decimate your opponents with their own creatures, maybe you don't lean into this, but it's a very powerful card as well. Skybind, another great card, obviously, with this kind of a deck. Whenever this or another enchantment enters the battlefield to control, exile target non-enchantment permanent. Return that card to the battlefield under its own control at the beginning of the next end step. Again, this can be a great way to get just an additional blink effect, essentially, an additional, again, non-enchantment permanent, so you can, get rid of whatever your opponents have. You can actually get rid of other ETBs that you might have in the deck, depending. But again, it is non-enchantment, so don't fall into the trap that you're like, oh, okay, yeah, my own things are going to blink that are enchantments. You might have other ETBs in the deck, potentially. Some of those, like, ramp creatures, essentially. Or it's ways to just get your opponent's things out of the way temporarily, so do keep that in mind. But yeah, when you're looking through Constellation, make sure you're keeping that in mind. Flicker Form. Let's say another direction you might be able to take the deck is like auras, and there's a lot of great low-to-the-ground auras, especially ones with flash, so you can get your commander's triggers on your opponent's turns as well. But this one especially is really good. By paying 4 mana in total, exile enchant creature all auras attached to it. Begin next end step, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. If you do, return the other cards exiled this way to the battlefield under its owner's control attached to that creature. Basically, 4 mana, blink this creature, blink whatever's attached to it that are auras, and they all come back. So, yeah, it's a very easy way to, basically with your setup, just pay 4 mana, probably blink that creature and 3+, auras, and all of a sudden, they all come back into play. And then you get all 3 triggers, and then you do that again next turn. It does take a lot of mana to do this, obviously, but it's also a good way to save a creature, too, and just get a lot of value. Sigarda's Aid, very expensive card, very good with this kind of a strategy, though, if you want to pay for it. You may cast Aura and equipment spells with delayed flash. You can probably ignore that thing about equipment. I mean, you might have, like, lightning greaves in the deck or whatever, but yeah, you can just auto-attach it. So yeah, being able to play at flash speed can be very beneficial with this commander, so definitely keep something like that in mind. Vidal Canori would obviously just be very good. Next up, Spellbook Vendor. Another thing to consider is repeatable enchantment creating effects. At the end of combat on your turn, you may pay 1. When you do, create a sorcerer role token attached to target creature you control. Yeah, which again is an aura. So essentially, yeah, you get to actually just get enchantments in play for just 1 mana every single one of your combats. So yeah, being able to pay that is very much worth it, because that's also Surveil 2. Or, if it's the second one, discard a card. Or if it's the third one, in that turn, reanimate something. So very much worth it. And also all the other constellation effects you're going to have. And then, of course, with an Enchantress Tribe strategy, Mace Enchantress, these kind of effects as well. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you may draw a card. If you're leaning heavy into auras, like Shram is great as well. Being able to dig down in your deck even further can obviously benefit you even more. But yeah, overall, a very interesting commander, a lot of different avenues to take it. Moving on to some other spoilers. My goodness. Yeah, I kind of referenced that we had a new room coming, and this is a huge one. Funeral Room in Awakening Hall. Here we go. So, Funeral Room. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. That's already just a very, very good effect. That's basically what, like Zulport Cutthroat, essentially, but on an enchantment. Bastion of Remembrance, I think, might do the exact same thing, essentially, but also makes you like a 1/1. This one, though, has absurd potential because Awakening Hall is a game-ending type effect. When you unlock this door, return all creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Now, it is quite the hefty price, again, at 8, but again, that's like more of like a late game, hey, I win the game type effect. So this card is absolutely absurd in aristocrat-style strategies or any strategies that really want to get a lot of creatures out of the graveyard, self-mill, that kind of thing as well. That being said, yeah, aristocrat strategies is really where this lives very, very well because obviously, those types of effects, we're just getting so many of those Blood Artist type effects these days that at some point you're just going to be able to do like bloodartist.deck and you're just like, okay, all the Blood Artist effects and like that's it. This is a crazy good one though because again, this one is one of the pieces of draining, one of the pieces of like, okay, potential win, but also gives you the win essentially with that mass reanimation. Again, with the aristocrat style strategy, you're going to be getting a lot of creatures out, a lot of creature fodder out, sacrificing them all. And this is like, okay, cool, I drain my opponents of all that, and then I bring them all back, and I do it again, and you're all gone. You obviously also get any ETBs your creatures might have, and yeah, you can do some very, very powerful things, on top of just, yeah, cheating creatures into play that you maybe discarded or milled or surveilled or whatnot. So yeah, this is going to be a huge card. It is a mythic. It's probably going to be very expensive because aristocrat-style decks are, I believe, still in the top 10 most popular. So yeah, this is going to see a lot of play out there. And yeah, just reanimation style decks too. Next up, Ghostly Key Bearer, a 3/3 spirit with flying for 4 mana, deals combat to a player. Unlock a locked door of up to 1 target room you control. Yeah, I mean, if they, you know, actually like room style deck is going to become a thing, it very well might be because we are getting more and more rooms. We're probably going to get a commander at some point that's like 5 color and deals with all the rooms. Cool. And if not, I'm sure you can still build a deck around it. That being said, this obviously, outside of that, not really a, you know, card for any deck out there. But, I mean, for a room deck, you could save a ton of mana. Again, we just talked about one that costs 8, essentially. So, there you go. That can be a huge play for you. Next up, Balustrade Worm, a 5/5 worm that costs 5 mana in green. This spell can't be countered. It's got Trample and Haste, and it's got Delirium. Pay 4 essentially in green. Return it from your graveyard to the battlefield. A finality counter on it. Activate only if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard and only as a sorcery. This seems to me more like, I mean, like, it's kind of sad to say these days. It's like, this is more like a limited card. I mean, limited other formats as well, like standard, but like, this is not really, I mean, if you got a worm deck in Commander, cool, but a 5/5 Trample Haste for 5 mana you can bring back for 4, I guess. If you've got a deck that really cares about bringing things back out of the graveyard, or if you've got a self-mill deck and you can bring it back, cool. I mean, the finality counter on it obviously limits it. It's not like a re-summoning skeleton where you're like, I get it back again, and again, and again, and again. It's a solid card. It's a very solid card, but again, how many decks is it going to see playing Commander? I am not sure. Next up, Fear of Imposters. That art is really sickening and really cool. A 3/2 enchant creature nightmare for 3 mana in blue. Flash. When it enters, counter target spell, its controller manifests dread. Interesting. So this one is one that is, I mean, again, like a Mystic Snake type creature, but for 1 less mana. That being said, this is replacing the card with something else. So it's not just like straight up counter the spell and your opponent gets nothing. They do get something, again, surveilling basically, and yeah, getting a 2/2 face down that they can then flip up and say creature card by paying the cost. So interesting. It's very, very interesting, and well, we'll see how much this sees play. It is an enchantment creature as well, so definitely keep that in mind for Enchantress decks as well. It's interesting to see how much play it's going to keep, you know, because it is a good trade-off. It's just, yeah, I mean, maybe I'm underrating it, but it seems like a decent card. Obviously, blink decks can utilize it too. Be like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, I blinked my creature and I counter your spell again. Yay! So I guess if your deck already contains like Mystic Snape type cards, then consider it. Next up, did I say Mystic Snape, like Harry Potter? Okay, never mind. Mystic Snake. Head Shredder, a 5/5 vehicle for 4 mana in green. When this attacks, you may mill 2 cards. Whenever one or more land cards are put in your graveyard from your library, put them on the battlefield tapped. Oh my goodness. Crew 1. So yeah, this seems quite good. I mean, there's probably some combos. There's probably some combos with this, right? There's got to be some combos with this. This is, I mean, yeah, there's creatures that can mill you, right? There's creatures that can definitely mill you whenever a land comes into play. I mean, like Hedron Crab. Does that really do opponents? I can't remember. So this one's got to have some combos with it, but at the very least, just in a vehicle deck, it's a slam dunk for those types of decks out there. It's got a low crew cost, which is nice. It's not all that big, right? It's a 5/5. But yeah, you attack with a 5/5, and you're like, okay, cool. Awesome, I attacked, and oh, I hit 2 lands. Awesome. They're going on the battlefield tapped. That is ramped just by swinging as well. So a decent body, a decent crew cost, not too much mana, and yeah, the potential for a lot of lands. I mean, obviously, like, self-mill decks are going to go crazy for this, I feel like. I mean, not crazy, but I mean, one or more lands are pretty great from the library. Put them on the battlefield. It's not. It says 1 or more. Put them onto the battlefield. It doesn't say 1 of them on the battlefield. If it was 1 of them, that'd be a lot more limiting. And that, like, if you mass mill yourself, you're not getting them all. But I mean, if you've got this and you cast like Morality Shift, which swaps your graveyard and your library, which yes, technically means that your library hit your graveyard, you then just get every single one of those cards onto the battlefield tap that is a land. So yeah, there's some crazy things that you can do with this. Yeah, this seems like it's got a lot of potential for the right deck out there. It's not just like slam dunk in any deck out there that's green, but if you do have, again, self-mill strategy, or if you have a vehicles deck, it seems like a very, very, very good card. Next up, Leyline of Transformation. I love that we are getting ley lines. I'm just a big fan of ley lines. And yeah, we're getting closer and closer to like the, all ley lines deck, where it's like turn 1, or turn 0, I should say. You just like toss in, 7 ley lines into play and be like, okay, my hand's gone. Let's see what happens. Enchantment for 4 mana in blue. If it's in your opening hand, you begin the game with it on the battlefield, which is the same thing as all the other ley lines. Enters, choose a creature type. Creatures you control are the chosen type, addition to their types. The same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield. I love this. I think it's a really cool concept for a ley line. It is, in effect, it's like, what, arcane adaptation, basically? But now on a ley line that you can get to play for free. And again, if you've got like a, like a Lord's tribal deck in a way, where you have just all these different types of creatures, different types of lords out there, and you all want them to be the exact same type, potentially, then cool. It's really good for that type of strategy out there. It's pretty specific, again, on what kinds of decks want this, because you're just playing like a normal tribal deck. You're not like, oh, I already have all the elves in the deck, so I don't really need something that turns my things into elves. But yeah, if you are doing more of a specific strategy with, building around like an arcane adaptation, a xenograph, those kinds of things as well, there's certain combos that can work with that too. I'm just thinking about that one, like Zathrid Necromancer, I think is the one where it's like, whenever a human dies, you make a zombie. And then if your zombies are also humans, then you keep making zombies if you're sacrificing them, that kind of thing too. So this has some combo potential. Basically, are you using arcane adaptation? Yes? You probably want to consider this one. Or are you making an all ley lines deck? Yes? Cool. You're awesome. Keep doing that. Here's another card to add into it. And with that, this episode is coming to a close. As always, comment below with your thoughts on it. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.